Welcome back, I'm George, and in this video I'm going to show you all the settings you need to change on your new iPhone 17 or 17 Pro. I have customization settings, I have battery settings, I have Face ID and security settings. There is definitely a lot you can do to improve your user experience on this phone. So without further ado, let's begin with the first thing I recommend you do. Let's tap on Settings. Let's swipe down to General, and right here on About, if you tap on Name, as you can see, you can actually change the name of your phone. But be careful because everyone is going to see this name when you share data through AirDrop or connect to other devices, so don't name it anything too crazy or stupid. Now that being said, and back here on the main settings page, let's now swipe down once again to General and tap on Software Update. As you can see, we have an option for automatic updates that I suggest, right now at least with iOS 26, you turn off. Normally, I would not recommend you turn off this feature functionality, but with iOS 26, there's been a lot of bugs and issues with their software updates, so I think it is better you don't update automatically and wait to check if that update is safe. But anyways, that being said, let's now swipe out of settings because I am going to show you how you can disable the infamous liquid glass. As many of you know, with iOS 26, we've gotten a new glossy layer over everything on the phone, which, as you can see, can make things a little hard to read sometimes depending on what's on the background. So thankfully, Apple has also released a quick way to disable this glossy new layer. Let's tap on Settings. Let's then swipe down to Accessibility, then tap on Display and Text Size, and right here enable Reduce Transparency. Automatically, as you'll see right now, all of the glossy animations are over and text is visible no matter what's on the background, which is of course a lot nicer. Of course, that is going to be flatter and less exciting than liquid glass, but if you're having readability issues, I think your priority should be to, see everything that's on your phone, read the text properly. But anyways, that being said, and before we move on, now I actually have something for you watching this video. This right here is the new Ugreen MagFlow magnetic power bank, and I believe it is the perfect companion for the new iPhone 17. It has 25-watt wireless charging, which, by the way, feels really strong with high-quality magnets, and it also lets the iPhone 17 Pro Max go from 0 to 50 in just 38 minutes. It also has a real-time battery display, so you can check the progress as you charge the phone, and it can charge up to 3 devices at the same time, since you have 2 USB-C ports and a MagSafe connector. It is available as a battery bank, but you also have it as a 2-in-1 wireless charger, which also supports up to 25-watt wireless charging and can charge your phone, AirPods, and Apple Watch all at the same time. So if you're looking for new accessories to take advantage of your new iPhone, these two are the right choice. You'll find links for both down below in the description. Thank you, Ugreen, for sponsoring this video. But anyways, that being said, let's now get back to the iPhone 17 because there is a lot more to cover. Back here on the main settings page, let's now swipe down to the Face ID and passcode settings. Of course, it is going to ask for your password for security reasons. And once you're here, you'll see a surprising amount of settings to improve your safety when using the phone. So first of all, I want you to swipe down here to change passcode because there is a setting you have to be wary of or potentially turn off. So let's change the passcode. Let's add the old one. Let's add a random new one. There we go, use anyway. Because as you can see, once I've changed my passcode, there is a red setting right here called Expire Previous Passcode Now. This is very dangerous, and essentially, as you can see right here on the text, it lets you use the old password to completely reset the phone for 72 hours after you change the passcode. Of course, this is kind of a security breach because generally when you change your password is because someone you don't trust knows the old one, and therefore having the old one available for a couple days is not the safest thing in the world. Ideally, when you change your passcode, you want to tap right here and expire the passcode now. So the old one is not available and cannot be used. And well, also here on the Face ID settings, a little bit below, you'll see the settings that control the access when the phone is locked to a set of different features. In this case, these are the right settings I believe you should turn on or off, but I'm going to turn all of them on so we can check them out one by one. So first of all, let's touch on Today View and Search. This would be, of course, your Spotlight search that allows you to check every single app or document that's on the phone. It is not really safe to enable this when the phone is locked. And your Today View is this menu right here that allows you to see your widgets. Now, in my case, there's not a lot of personal information, but sometimes people have their photos, their notes, their documents here, and it's also not really safe to have this turned on when the phone is locked. So I suggest you turn this off so it is only accessible once you've included your Face ID. Now for your notifications, I highly recommend you turn it off. I think your notifications can contain a lot of personal data like phone calls, messages, and stuff like that. So I also like to turn it off. Control Center, I don't think you have to turn it off because you can only control basic things like the brightness and the volume and connectivity. It is not a big deal to have it turned on. Then also for your lock screen widgets, I personally have it turned on because in my case, it only shows the weather and my steps. But in your case, if you have a personal widget with personal information, well, then I think it's better to turn it off. Then for live activities, I generally leave it on because it is just going to show your timer or your delivery service, your Uber right here on the dynamic island. It is not very dangerous to have it turned on. Then you have Siri right here, which is kind of dangerous to have turned on. Of course, when this feature is enabled, you'll be able to access Siri from the lock screen, which doesn't necessarily mean it is dangerous because this version of Siri is way more limited than the one you have when the phone is unlocked. But in the past, people have... Shut up, Siri, please. Okay. In the past, people have been able to breach the security of the phone, accessing it through the lock screen. So personally, I don't like to turn it on. So let's turn it off. I also highly suggest you turn off reply with message. You don't want people that don't have access to your phone replying to your messages. Then if you have HomeKit accessories, I also suggest you turn this off because theoretically, if you have things connected to your phone through HomeKit and you have this on, people that can grab your phone without unlocking it could open your garage door, turn on your blinds, turn on your whatever accessories you have at home. So yeah, especially if doors can open through HomeKit, you want to turn this off. Then for return missed calls, I think you should turn it off for added safety. And for workout health data, I believe it is better to turn it on because most of the time when you're working out, the phone is locked. So this way you can still keep gathering data about the workout. And well, also down here at the bottom, you have this option called erase data. This, I think, is for people that have very sensitive data on their device. Essentially, when you turn it on, the phone is going to give you 10 attempts to unlock. And after that, it is going to wipe all the data that's on the device. I believe this is very dangerous, once again, especially for those of you who have little kids or siblings. And it actually only makes sense for people like maybe a president or someone that has really sensitive data that cannot be leaked. In that case, well, you can turn it on. But for everybody else, if you're a normal person with normal data on your phone, leave it off just in case. But anyways, that being said, let's get back here to the main settings page and swipe down to Apple Intelligence and Siri. What I suggest you do here is you tap on Talk and Type to Siri and turn it off. Realistically, you are not going to be talking to Siri on a daily basis or even on a weekly/monthly basis. So having the microphones active all the time, looking for everything you're saying and capturing everything that's happening around you just in case you say the words is a little too extreme and it burns way too much battery life. So this is not just, functionally better to not have all the microphones listening to what you're saying, but also you save quite a bit of battery life. Now also, moving on, as a great tip to save battery life, I suggest you get back here to the main settings page, then tap on cellular, and right here on cellular data options, I suggest you tap on voice and data and tap on 4G. This, of course, is very controversial because 5G is better than 4G on paper, but turns out 5G is actually going to consume a lot more battery without giving you that much of an improvement. 4G is already pretty fast. In fact, most of the time, 5G is not faster than 4G unless you're very, very close to the antenna. So I suggest you turn on 4G and try it for a couple weeks, see how it works. And if you don't notice the difference, we'll leave it off because, once again, it is going to save a lot of battery life. Now, that being said, back here to the main settings page, let's now swipe down to the notifications segment, because here you'll see a full list with every single app that has the permission to send notifications to your phone. Now, ideally, this list should be as small and as restrictive as possible, because every single app that sends notifications is connected to the internet, it is working on the background, and therefore it is burning a lot of battery life. Ideally, you want to select the essential apps and turn everything else off. In my case, for example, I don't think I need Disney Plus to be sending notifications. I don't think I need, well, Flappy Dunk is already turned off, but say Gemini, I don't think I need it to be sending notifications. I don't need the Gemini investment app to be sending notifications. There is a long list of apps you can just turn off, and this is actually going to be a big improvement in battery life. Now, that being said, something very similar you can do is to come right here to the main settings page, then tap on General, and right here tap on Background App Refresh. This is going to be another full list with every app that can refresh in the background when you're not using it. And that is also something that burns a lot of battery life. As you can see, by default, most of your apps, if not all, are going to be turned on, which is not great. And once again, I suggest you take a close look at every single one of these apps and only enable the ones you actually use or you actually need to be updating in the background, because most of these apps are going to update the moment you open them anyways, so you don't really need them to also be updating in the background when you're not using them. And well, once again here on the main settings page, another great way you can save battery life is by tapping right here on sounds and haptics, and then at the bottom, disabling the system haptics. Now, these system haptics are essentially little engines inside of the iPhone that make small vibrations depending on what you're doing, and that burn a lot of battery life because they are actual engines that are moving and that consume a lot of energy. This, for some people, is going to be a bummer because they actually feel nice when you're using the iPhone and you get those little, feedback vibrations on your hand. But for everybody else that don't really care, you actually want to turn this off because it is going to be a noticeable bump in battery life. But anyways, that being said, let's now move on back here to the main settings page, swipe down to display and brightness, and change a couple display settings on your phone. First of all, as you can see, you have the option to change between light mode and dark mode, which is also going to save a little bit of battery life because it consumes less energy. Of course, you can also change the text size and make it bold so it's more readable. You can enable True Tone, which I always recommend. As you can see, it is going to change the colors of the display to adjust them to the environment so the phone is easier to read. And you also have a very underrated feature called Night Shift. When you turn it on, as you can see, the entire display is going to turn yellow, which doesn't really make sense at first glance, but it is actually a great way to help you fall asleep at night. What the phone is doing here is it's canceling the blue light on the device so it doesn't interfere with your circadian rhythms. I know it sounds a little weird, but trust me, using your phone at night with a lot of blue light is really bad for your brain because it thinks it's daytime, and that's why you have a hard time falling asleep. So try this and see if it helps. In my case, it's been really, really helpful. Now, also here on the main display settings, by the way, this is going to be available for the iPhone 17 Pro and the normal 17. you have the always on display functionality. Now, by default, you'll see that all the options are turned on, so you essentially have a very information dense always on display with your wallpaper, your time, your notifications, your widgets, everything is available. But I found, especially with the wallpaper, this burns a lot of battery life. So my suggestion is that you turn off all of these options right here at the top, and you get the basic time, date, and widgets right here without any notifications or without any wallpaper. That being said though, this is not supposed to look so dim. It is barely readable. Generally, it would look as clear as the date right here at the top. I think this is just a bug with iOS 26. And well, as a final display setting, let's get back here to the main page, then swipe down to accessibility, and right here on motion, let's swipe all the way to the bottom to disable or enable the frame rate limit. If you turn it on, the phone is going to work at 60 Hertz, which of course is going to be less fluid, less buttery, but it is also going to burn less battery life. Now, in my opinion, this is going to depend on how much you notice the difference, because some people don't really notice the 60 or 120 Hertz difference. And for those people, it is better to limit the frame rate and save battery life. But if you do notice the difference, I think you should turn it off and enjoy your buttery smooth phone, especially considering that is one of the reasons you bought such an expensive device, because it has 120 Hertz. But anyways, that being said, let's get back once again to the main settings page, swipe down to general, and swipe down to keyboard. So first of all, I recommend you swipe down to all keyboards and disable the auto correction, which is going to automatically change the word you are trying to type, guessing the right one, which a lot of times is not really the right one and it pisses you off. And well, you can also choose to disable the predictive text, which is that layer at the top of the keyboard that shows the words you may be trying to type. And well, another very interesting you can do here is to tap on text replacement, then tap on plus, and then you can type a very long phrase. In this case, it doesn't really make any sense. It is just for demo. But you can replace essentially this very long phrase with a shorter phrase or even a word. In my case, I'm going to just type WQ. When you tap on save, there we go. We can automatically replace WQ, there we go, with that very long phrase. This is very helpful if you ever see yourself typing the same long phrase over and over and over again to the just different types of people. This way you can just type 2 letters and automatically fill in the entire phrase. But anyways, that being said, and once again here on the main settings page, let's now swipe down to action button, because I'm pretty sure many of you already knew, you can customize the action button that's right here on the left side at the top. So by default on your phone, it is going to be set to enable or disable the silent mode. So you can enable or disable by tapping and holding. But as you can see, there is a very long list of alternative options. In my case, I generally use the flashlight when I tap on the action button. Then you also have the voice memos, you can recognize music, you can translate, and very interesting, you can also create a shortcut to do essentially anything you want. There's actually a very funny video on YouTube of a guy that's pressing the action button, and automatically, thanks to a shortcut, he creates a chain of actions, like his garage door opens, his blinds turn on, his coffee maker turns on, the lights of the living room. Like he does a lot of things. In this case, of course, it is going to be a lot more complex, and that would need a separate video. But if you like to tinker and do very specific things, this is a very interesting option to dive in and spend hours and hours trying multiple things. And well, that being said, and as you also probably know, on the right side we have a camera control button, so you can quickly open the camera and take a picture. Now, the problem most people have with the camera control is that, as you can see right here, when you grip it with a little too extra strength, this menu shows up, giving you the option to control the camera, which is something you could already do with the touch controls on the phone. So just for reference, in my iPhone 16 Pro, I actually had it turned off completely because I was triggering it accidentally all the time. It was really, really annoying. But thankfully, with the iPhone 17 and iOS 26, we have a way to fix the camera control. So let's tap once again on the settings, then swipe down to camera, tap on camera control, and right here on controls, you want to tap on customize and disable the light press. Once you do this, you'll still be able to tap to open the camera, tap to take a picture, which is genuinely useful, but you won't activate the weird contextual menu with a light press when you grip the phone. For that, you'll have to swipe down like this, which is something that's way harder to do accidentally. Now, additionally, also here on the menu, you'll be able to control the things you can do with that contextual menu. And in this case, if you don't really use it, I recommend you turn most of these options on besides the cameras. This way, of course, it is not going to be that useful, but it is going to be a lot faster because you can only do one thing. So this may be a way you can see yourself using the camera control. But anyways, that being said, those were all the settings that I had for this video. If you have any questions regarding anything that I said, please tell me down below. And if not, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to see you again very soon. Peace.